Hi, my name is James and I am one half of the video team for the artist Jono Dry. And over the years, we have tried a million different ways to film the drawing process. We've tried super sexy slow-mo shots, doing as many moves as we can on a gimbal, time lapses. We have done everything, all in an attempt to give the best representation of the drawing process on video. And this means that we're always on the lookout for interesting new ways that people are filming the drawing process as well. A couple of days ago, Jono found this video by a creator called Richard Liu, who does these incredible TikToks. The technique that he's using here is what's called macro videography, where you take a specific kind of lens called a macro lens, which is different from a normal camera lens, because you can take the lens and go incredibly close, almost microscopic on whatever you're filming. And Richard Liu uses this to show off these very, very fine, considered movements that are required when drawing and doing hyperrealism in general. So we were super inspired by this TikTok and we decided to give it a shot ourselves. We initially thought it was going to be a fun, cool one-day thing. It was a lot more difficult than we thought it was going to be. And there were a lot more cool, interesting things that we wanted to test out. So yeah, first things first was for me and Jess, my coworker, to sit down and figure out exactly how we were going to pull this off. What macro gives you is a degree of focus that the artist also has. So I want to sort of give people an insight into Jono's experience of drawing, to let people focus on what he is focusing on, which is what he's seeing and what he's doing with his hands. The issue is that we get so close that the field of view is like a couple of millimeters. I'm foreseeing the issue there if, like, as the pencil is moving, even like millimeters, it's going to be thrown out of focus.
So something we can do is close the aperture of the camera. Usually we're on like a 2.8 aperture because that gives us a sexy background. So instead of like a 2.8, we could go f7 even.
Yeah.
We want to go in slow motion, right?
Yeah, I think so, because it's going to make the editing easier. Shooting in slow-mo will mean that we don't have sound. So I think it's what Richard Liu did in his video as well, which is add Foley.
Foley is everything we hear, but Foley artist records the sound of every like micro movement to add that cinematic effect. Sometimes Foley makes the experience of sound even more intense than the sound would actually sound like. I'm really excited because we can experiment with a bunch of things. Wait, go.
I just want to know what you guys are doing. So I really like conceptually the idea of like zooming in. The viewer feels like they are seeing through the artist's eyes.
Now we have solved all the problems. It is the mere measly fact of shooting it. So it's time to do the shoot. We decided to shoot just Jono drawing the hand of the figure, just because it was identifiable for viewers. We are shooting on two cameras, one of them with the macro lens on it and one of them with just a normal camera lens. Because we closed down the aperture, we had to boost the light so you can see us moving that small LED light right next to the camera and right next to the movement. Despite getting the lens so close to the action, we also had to shoot it in 4K so we could punch in. As you can see here, I was absolutely overjoyed by the results that we were getting. With all of that done, we decided to chuck it into the edit to see how it was going to come out.
The thing that like I immediately want to remove is the shots of me. So like the lighting here isn't great. It's too sharp, and that's like because whatever it is not diffuse. So we could be using that aperture on the desk, I think.
Yeah, it was.
I quite like seeing the wider version of that as well because it looks quite layered.
I wouldn't mind like a triple crash zoom in.
So like I go from a wide to a close up to a macro, like boom, 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 like that.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Team.
Boom.
It was time for take two. We switched it up with the lighting. We brought in a much bigger light with a softbox just to soften up those wides and create a bigger level of contrast between the one side of Jono's face and the other. And then those three angles, I feel like it works really well. To have three angles really emphasizes the perspective of how close we are going. When you see that wide, it looks very normal size, but once you crop into a close-up and then crop in even further to a macro, you really get a sense of how close we are getting with that camera lens. So then it was time to chuck it into the edit again and then move on to some Foley. Okay guys, it is day 4 of this short. I think this is the most amount of time we have ever put into a short in our lives.
Definitely a short. Yeah.
Definitely a short. All the shots are locked on and we're happy with them. And now we've gone through all the shots, figured out sort of what sounds we want to get, and now we're going to try and record all of them. So this sound recording was a very weird experience. We were looking at objects and not thinking what they actually sound like, but more thinking about the texture and characteristics of sounds that they could invoke. So for example, we used a rock and rubbed it together, and we were thinking more about the roughness and the friction of the rock. We used this rock sound for the pencil gliding across the paper, which on the surface wouldn't make any sense, but actually in the edit worked quite well. Speaking of the edit, there were certain interesting principles that I felt really had to be respected in this process. Specifically, we were trying to make these images feel like they were larger than they were. To give the sound and object's weight, I doubled up the audio and pitched down the bottom audio significantly to make it feel like there was a sort of heftiness behind each movement. Adding a lot of reverb to these sounds really helped sell that feeling of weight, which I was going for as well. So it was a really interesting exercise, and I'm pretty stoked with the way it came out. Now that we are happy with the video and all of that figuring out has happened, here is the final result.
I'm really stoked with how it came out, by the way.
I'm particularly in love with like the 3-level shots, like from going from the wide to the close-up to the super close-up. Yeah, I thought that was really valuable.
For me, the moment where you zoom out and the sound becomes small again. So you spend time making the sound large. Like the viewer feels small and the object feels massive, and then you zoom out and the sound is suddenly this like little scratchy sound again. It contextualizes the whole thing. Kind of like I was being seen, because that's also how I focus in quite hectically onto the drawings. So that is like the detail that I'm trying to draw was what we were capturing with those macro shots. So
well, that means that we did our job.
We did, yeah, you guys did a great job.
Successfully completed the thesis essentially of the video. Thanks for watching, guys. This is a cool, fun little channel where we just do cool, fun little videos like this. See you in the next one.
Cool. Cheers.